Hey guys, Tel17 here, and today we're going to have a how-to on how to scout in World of Tanks. Now I am here on the lovely Live Oaks with a tier 9 match in my tier 5 Chaffee. Now the tier 5 Chaffee goes up to tier 10. That's bound to change soon because they're going to change the whole line of the Chaffee. But I can still use this video to show you how exactly you can use this tank to scout. Now, before the match starts, you always get 30 seconds, and in this time I always like to go over what kind of tanks I'm going to be up against. I know that I'm up against the Type 64 Scout. This is one of their fast tanks. They have some mediums, especially the higher tier mediums could be a problem if they spot me. They have one artillery unit, so I might be able to go after him. And these heavies are probably going to the town. Now, a town is not really a good location for a scout, so I won't be dealing with these guys too much. You'll also see me point out in chat here where I'm going to be scouting first. I'm going to scout towards the town first, which is over here, and then I'll pull back and go towards the bridge. That's my plan right now. I always like to have these things on a window so that I can see which tanks are still alive, and this way I can much better estimate where they might be, where they might show up, and how much player skill they have. So right here I'm going over to this spotting location right in front of the town, sitting behind some bushes and deploying camo net and binoculars, and immediately I spot this pattern. Now right now there's a lot of units over here from our side which can fire at them, and this is crucial for a scout. Yes, a scout is meant to detect enemies, but he's also only valuable when there's someone left to fire at these guys that he's spotting. So right now this guy is in a pretty poor spot. He's right in the open. These heavies can just shoot by these buildings, maybe even through this corridor, and the Panther and T-32 might be able to take a shot at him. I hold my fire to make sure I'm not spotted, and the pattern takes one hit before disappearing into those buildings. I'm going to speed it up a little. There's a Leopard PTA spotted on my right flank. I know I can damage him, because the Leopard PTA has some really low armor. But if I start to shoot at him, I might give my position away. And at this point I don't know if there's a unit over here which might be able to scout me out and have some couple of shots at me. So I hold my fire. I move up to a secondary spotting position. From here I can much better overlook this field, and sometimes there's a couple of TDs overlooking this field. Now right now there's only one of them. There's the Panzer SFL 5. I don't know where it is, so I'm going to be a bit cautious. What I do know is that on this side I got the 3 mediums spotted on that side of the bridge, which is very fortunate. If they were in here, especially the Leopard PTA with its very high visual range, it could be a problem for me. Instead, they seem to stick to this side, and I even know where the IS-8 is at this point. Okay, waited long enough. I know there's a couple of tanks to my left, I know there's some tanks to my right, so I stick to the low ground here and start making my way towards their base. Now this is not the cap. There are probably still too many units near the cap to safely secure it, so what I am going to do is tell my artillery to start looking to A0, which is where I expect they're already to be. And I go around their cap zone to make sure that my presence isn't known until the very last moment. Now there's the artillery. I get spotted, and I start firing at this guy.
Ready to fire. Enemy armor is damaged.
Now this is very, very dangerous for a scout. I could have waited for my artillery to take a shot at him, but I wasn't ready to do that, so watch what happens next.
Penetration.
I fire and he fires, and it hits just beside me. If I was there, he would have probably hit me. So make sure that if you're approaching artillery, you either force him to fire and hopefully he doesn't kill you because only his splash range will find you, or make sure that you come at him from the right angle.
Enemy armor
Take
is
a couple of shots at him, and with the next shot he's down.
enemy vehicle destroyed.
Now this is really the power of the Chaffee. You can take down very high tier vehicles in a low tier tank. I just took down a tier 9 artillery unit, and yes, they're not armored that well, but it's still a unit that's 4 tiers higher than myself. Now over here I stop right outside their cap circle and try to have a look at what they can, or what I can see in that town. And I know there's an STI there, but unfortunately I don't have the pen from my standard rounds to go through this guy.
We didn't even scratch them. We didn't
Now,
penetrate their armor.
I make a conscious decision not to move up closer, and I do this because if I get here, I might not be as effective against both of these tanks. I might be able to circle them, but they're quite close to the edge of the map and to a lot of buildings, so I'm not going to be able to encircle them like you would in a normal scout. So this is why I stay at range, and this also helps me to later go down this side so I can help with combating these vehicles over here.
Penetration.
I started firing APCR at this point,
Penetration.
and I managed to put the STI on fire.
Enemy armor is hit.
I get a couple of shots at him until my team gets close enough to kill him. He's down, and now I'm going over to the bridge because I knew there were some mediums there, and by now those mediums have relocated to pretty close to our base, so I'm going to have to help them out there. Right now we have a T-28 in their cap, so we're starting the cap. And oh, hello, here's an IS-8. Do a power slide with the Chaffee, and I try to get a couple of shots on this guy. If only just to piss him off or to upset him that there's a Chaffee nearby.
Enemy armor is damaged.
It works, and he seems to be able to try to direct the fight by going after one target at a time, which is absolutely the right call. So I decide that I'm not going to stick around to find out what he's going to be up to, and I'm going back to my own base. I decide he's not really worth my time, since the cap, our cap that is in much bigger worries. So I'm going back to my cap as fast as I can, which in the case of the Chaffee is about 60 kph. Yeah, try not to run into any trees. Now I know there's a leopard on the cap, or rather was, and that was going to be my main target because he was the main trouble at that point. The Conqueror out there wasn't that big of a threat because he wasn't capping, so he wasn't actually harming the team that way, but he was firing at the IS-6 and the IS-8, and I tried to get as close to him as I can to start firing on the move and to start circling this guy. I managed to get the last shot on this guy, and I take out his last hit point. So that concludes this replay. Let's have a look at the post-game stats. So here are the post-game stats. I managed to get a good number of XP in here. Keep in mind this is with the ×2. I hit 84% of my shots, and I did 1255 damage on my own with 137 spotting damage. Now for a scout this is very low spotting damage, especially for the Chaffee, but even though I didn't do as much spotting damage, I did contribute to the team, as you can see here. I turned up 4th in my team, and this is due to two reasons. One, I managed to take out a lot of high tier vehicles, as in I took out the tier 9 Conqueror and the tier 9 artillery, but also that the Chaffee gets multiplication factor, and this really helps you to get more XP in the same tank. Okay guys, here's some more scout replay, and in this video you can really see the passive scouting ability of a vehicle. Passive scouting means that you just stand behind a bush, don't move, and use your binoculars in your camera to stay hidden while you're able to spot the team.
Let's go.
Now in this team I know that I'm the only real scout we have, and on their side they don't really have any scouts except for their ELC, so that's the one I gotta be careful for. They have some mediums which could make my life difficult, but other than that I'm not too worried. So the first thing I do is immediately go to a very aggressive spotting position here, right in the field. And so long as my flanks here and here are defended, in the sense that there's not a tank which is going towards this region, I will not be spotted, especially since I'm going to hold my fire and use my binoculars on my camo net as a scout. Now the first thing that happens here is that my binoculars pop up and immediately I light up this KV-1S. Unfortunately he's hidden behind this terrain, so my team doesn't really get a lot of good shots at him. Not so much so for the Valentine here. I spot this guy and I have a lot of vehicles behind me to help me take out this guy. So I'm going to hold my fire and let these guys do the shooting, because they got a lot of cover to hide behind, I do not, and if I get spotted I'm going to die. Valentine's out of action. At this point the SU-100 which was here probably returned fire at these guys, and that allowed me to spot him as well. Now keep in mind that all this while all I've done is sit in these bushes and do nothing. This may seem boring, but it can be quite exciting to see what happens, and I like to look over the battlefield like this before actually joining the fight. Now the one thing that worries me here is the T-34-85 in this dip. If this guy comes up here, he's going to spot me, and that is going to make my job as a scout a lot more difficult. So I'm hoping that he doesn't, and that he doesn't have as good spotting ability as I have camo. These guys behind me are still really taking advantage of the spots from both this BDR, the Type 58 and myself. I'm pretty happy they stuck around, because this way I can do some spotting damage in this game. Now, could I have moved up to this side right now? Maybe. But there is an SU-85, there is an SU-100 here, I don't know exactly where he is, and there's an AT-8 which has a rapid fire gun. There's also a BDR G1, which means that there's another tank with a rotating turret, and since I can only rotate my turret a very little bit to the left and the right, I'm not going to go after these guys right now, not without proper fire support. So I'm perfectly happy spotting these guys right now. And for the past 2 minutes I've done nothing but sit in the bushes and help my team by spotting targets. Let's move it up a little. At this point I decide to go for it, because there aren't that many units out here, and the units that are here from their team are all facing the KV-1S and the Cheeto. So I might be able to get a good sight shot into one of these guys. Now the aim time of the ELC AMX is nothing short of an ice age, so the moment you start to aim, keep in mind that this thing has to aim for 2, maybe 3 seconds for you to get a proper shot. I managed to put one shell into the SU-85 which was out there, and by now I'm thinking that maybe with my 240 damage, maybe I can take out this cruiser 2 in one shot. So I'm going very close to him, and this is where the ELC has some trouble, because right now you're very vulnerable in this position. This cannon does not have any gun depression, so I have to be in this position, and if I stay here too long, both the Stewart or the cruiser and the T-34-85 are going to spot me and possibly take a shot at me. I take out the cruiser, but what I really should have done is take out the T-34-85 because that was the bigger problem right now. So next time if you're up against this position, in such a situation, go for the target which is more valuable to be taken out for your team. I should not have taken out the tier 3 in this case. I retreat behind these boulders as my gun is recharging. Gun reloaded. Now let's help out with this 88. The 88 is a very heavily armored target and even KV-1Ss have trouble penetrating it, at least from the front. So this is why I'm going to be coming in from the side or the aft. Get close to him, do 250 damage, and I park behind him so he cannot reverse anymore. As you can see, the Jagdpanzer just bounced another shot. He couldn't penetrate the 88. I can, especially from the rear. So I take the shot and get out. At this point the other two tanks were over here and he just died, and there was another one here who died as well. Now with this replay I really wanted to show you how effective passive spotting can be. Surely it's not the most passive spotting I've done in a game, but it is a good highlight to, or it is a good way to show you what passive spotting can do for your team. Especially if you're a scout, you don't always have to be on the move. You don't always have to be spotting targets by hopping in and out of the enemy base. But this is a very effective way to do it. Make sure that in this case, if you want to do something like this, you have sixth sense, which makes it able for you to know when you're detected and to use a lot of camo skills on your crew. The more camo skills the better, and if you're using a passive scout you can even go with a camo net to add some more camo. Now let's have a look at the post-game stats. So here are the post-game stats. In this game I got a Mastery Badge 2, I did 738 spotting damage, and I did 876 damage of my own. I hit all of my shots, which got me 1000 experience, and this is undoubled. I also managed to make first in my team, and this is because I was valuable both in doing damage and spotting other units. So this is really a good way to play the ELC Scout. Now you can see here my crew isn't that experienced yet. That's because I kept moving them up and up and up into other vehicles. So this is a pretty new crew I have. I have the sixth sense skill on this guy and he's working on camo. I have camo on my other crew member and he is working on clutch braking so I can make sharper turns with the ELC. Now crew skills are very important. The more camo you have, the better. Especially since movement doesn't impede the camo on a light tank. So make sure you have camo skills, make sure you have a camo net if you want to be sitting still. And I'm going to do another part of the video which you'll be seeing next on what kind of equipment to bring. Okay, let's have a look at the kind of equipment you can bring on a scout tank. What kind of equipment you're going to be bringing, and by this I mean this kind of additional modules, really depends on the kind of scout you're driving. The Chaffee excels at passive spotting and it's not a very fast scout such as the ELC or the T-71. So this scout is usually going to be in bushes, hiding from the enemy and using its spotting ability to get some actual spotting done. To do that, in this case I have ventilation, which gives me 5% extra ability on the crew. I have a camo net and I have binocular telescope. This gives me 25% view range extra, which adds nicely to my already base view range of 422. Now let's pick a different scout, and this is the T-71, the American Tier 7 scout. In this case I'm having a mixed setup. I have ventilation for some additional crew performance. I use the coated optics because this gives me 10% extra view range whether I'm moving or not, and this is very important because the T-71, although very stealthy, is best used as an active scout, which means that a scout that's going to be running around. He has a 64% or 64 kph speed limit, very high traverse speed, very good engine power, so this unit is best used to run around the battlefield and service the team that way. If I do want to sit still and be a passive scout, I can still use my coded optics for spotting, and I can use my camo net. Now you could argue that I could put something else on here. I could put a vertical stabilizer, which would help with accuracy during movement. So this would make me a lot more capable of taking out targets as I'm circling them, but I found that this really isn't a problem for the T-71. Let's pick another scout, the T-50. The T-50 is another scout which is very effective at moving about, and this is why I have a camo net, coded optics, and some enhanced gun laying drive. I'm using this because the T-50 is pretty good in my experience to be used against other vehicles while on the move, and I want to use this to get a little more aiming speed so that if I do stop very quickly, I can take a couple of shots at the enemy and get the hell out. This will really save on your aiming time, and that means that you can take the shots faster. Now there are some other scouts I have. You've already seen the ELC. ELC is set up as a passive spotter, which means it has the same loadout as the Chaffee. Camo net, binocular telescope and ventilation. Now with the Chaffee with the ELC AMX, you can use the binocular telescope. You could also decide to use this as a more active scout, since it has very good weight, very good horsepower and very good speed limit. So you could swap out the binocular telescope and put in some coded optics. Now this is up to you. I like to play my ELC as you've just seen in the video. Use it as a passive spotter and later on in the game actually join the fight. So for this purpose I think that the binocular telescope is a lot better. Let's have a look at another high tier scout, and this is basically the same to the T-71 in the sense that I want to be able to have this thing scout and do damage at the same time, since it's already a tier 8 machine. So I have a camo net for standing still. I have coded optics to make sure that I can view a little further than the rest of the team, which really helps the scouting ability of the tank. And I have an enhanced gun laying drive, and this helps me with the aiming speed as you've just seen on the T-50. Now this is important because the gun on the ELC isn't really that good. It has an aiming time, on the 1390. It has an aiming time of 3 seconds, and by shaving off 10% you're getting it down to 2.7 seconds, which really helps. Also, I need to be able to get 6 shells off in quick succession, and by using an enhanced gun laying drive I can really get these shots off quite accurately. Okay, so the message I wanted to convey here is that every scout plays a little differently, and most scouts can be used in both the passive role, which is standing still, and the active role, which is scouting actively on the battlefield, so moving about. Whichever way you prefer is your choice. Just keep in mind that some scouts are better suited to do one thing and some scouts are better suited to do another. It's going to take some experimentation to find what is right for you, and be sure to mess about with these units. Swapping out a camo net and putting in a binocular telescope can really alter the performance of this tank. Adding a ventilation can really help with some more cruise kills. Similarly, the ELC, I could play this thing as an active scout by swapping out possibly the binocular for coded optics, and maybe even the camo net for an enhanced gun laying drive. As you can see, there are many ways to play the scout, and I look forward to hearing how you play your scouts or how you'd like to play your scouts. So let me know what you think of the scouts or of my setups in the comments below. If you liked this video, if it was useful to you, please remember to like it. And if you want to see more of my videos, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video was useful to you.